bad dream house. The Simpsons find themselves in a comedic take on the Amityville horror as they settle into a new house with an irresistible price tag. Lisa and Marge can't shake off their fears of an ominous force hiding within the house, while Homer dismisses their concerns, even with a peculiar vortex discovered in the kitchen. Ignoring the warning signs, Homer playfully tosses an orange into the vortex, only to have it promptly returned with a note requesting them not to throw anything inside. As tensions escalate, Bart finds himself entangled by a mischievous lamp cord, while the house itself starts to manage the family, hurling Homer skyward and clinging to the ceiling. During an unsettling night, the house possesses Homer and the children, driving them to grab weapons and turn against each other. Thankfully, Marge intervenes, stopping the chaos. Later on, the family discovers an ancient Indian burial ground in the cellar, and the house ominously threatens their gruesome demise. Fed up, Marge confronts the house, demanding it to show some manners, and surprisingly, it complies. Determined to assert their presence, Marge declares that the house will have to accept their occupancy. The house requests a moment alone to decide its fate, which ultimately it chooses self-destruction and implodes into nothingness. Hungry Are the Damned. In a parody of Damon Knight's story To Serve Man and his Twilight Zone adaptation, the Simpsons are having a backyard barbecue when they are unexpectedly abducted by an alien spaceship. On the spaceship, they encounter Kang, Kodos, and Serac the Preparer, who treat them hospitably and provide an abundance of food for the upcoming great feast. As the family is weighed on a massive scale and the Rigelians insistently reference food, Lisa becomes suspicious and questions their true intentions. Curious, she ventures into the aliens' kitchen one night and witnesses Serac preparing a dish to enhance the flavor of humans. Lisa discovers a book titled How to Cook Human and hastily accuses the Rigelians of planning to devour them. However, the full title of the book, How to Cook for 40 Humans, is revealed, changing the context. The Rigelians feel hurt, disappointed, and angry at the family's mistrust. They decide to punish them by returning them back to Earth. Kang and Kodos express that the Simpsons could have lived luxuriously, but now must face a normal human existence. As the aliens depart, Lisa reflects sadly that the true monsters were their own family. However, the rest of the Simpsons disagree, as only Lisa inaccurately suspected the aliens' intentions. Marge scolds her daughter, remarking that her intelligence sometimes works against her, and Bart and Homer sarcastically thank Lisa for squandering their chance at a prosperous life. The Raven. In a comedic rendition of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, the Simpson family takes on the roles of the characters. The Raven narrator, portrayed by Homer, reads a book in an attempt to forget his lost love, Lenore, which is played by Marge. A mysterious knocking sound captures his intention, but upon investigation, he discovers a raven, but outside the window. As the raven enters the room and perches above the door, it amusingly exclaims, "Eat my shorts," which was uttered by Bart, but then interrupted by Lisa, clarifying that the raven only says nevermore. The raven continues to repeat the word nevermore, gradually driving the narrator to madness. Desperate to catch the mischievous bird, he unwittingly provokes it, causing the raven to drop books on him. Ultimately, the disturbed narrator finds himself lying amidst a sea of books, with the raven laughing at his predicament. During their trip to Morocco, the Simpsons stumbled upon a mysterious marketplace where Homer couldn't resist buying a monkey's paw. The vendor warned them about the consequences of making wishes with the paw, but Homer disregarded his advice, believing that he knew best. Upon returning home, the family had different ideas about how to use the paw. Maggie wished for a golden pacifier, and Bart wished for the family to become rich and famous. At first, everything seemed to be going great, and the family became the talk of the town, appearing on everything from billboards to t-shirts. However, the fame and fortune soon attracted negative attention, and the family became the subject of public backlash. Lisa decided to make a wish for world peace, but little did she know that her wish would attract the attention of the aliens Kang and Kodos, who saw the Earth as vulnerable and easy to conquer. Homer decided to make another wish. This time he wished for a simple turkey sandwich without any weird surprises. To his relief, the sandwich appeared to be perfect, except for the turkey being a little dry. Later on, Ned Flanders found the monkey's paw and used it to make a wish to get rid of the aliens, freeing the human race and becoming a hero. However, his subsequent wish for a castle made Homer angry and jealous. In Bart's nightmare, his mind has taken on supernatural abilities that allow him to manipulate reality itself. He is a godlike figure that can read the thoughts of others. This has turned the town into a fearful place where everyone is forced to be happy and cater to Bart's every whim. One afternoon, Bart returns home from school and demands to watch his favorite show, Krusty the Clown, but his father Homer refuses. In a fit of rage, Bart teleports Homer to the football stadium stadium, replacing the football and sending him crashing into the field post. Seeking revenge, Homer tries to attack Bart with a chair, but Bart turns him into a jack-in-the-box instead. Marge, desperate to help her family, takes Bart and Homer to Dr. Marvin Monroe. The doctor suggests that the two of them should spend more time together doing father-son activities. Homer takes Bart to a baseball game, fishing, shooting a BB gun, church, and an amusement park, and Bart starts to soften as he enjoys the quality time with his dad and decides to turn Homer back to his normal self, and the nightmare ends. In Homer's surreal dream, he finds himself fired for dozing off on the job. In a twist of fate, he becomes a gravedigger and accidentally falls asleep in one of the open graves. Meanwhile, Mr. Burns and Smithers are in a search of the perfect brain for their diabolical experiment to create the ultimate worker. They stumble upon the snoozing Homer, thinking he's already departed this life, and decide to take his brain for their twisted scheme. Mr. Burns is utterly disappointed with the result and orders Smithers to return Homer's brain to its rightful place. But things take a bizarre turn when the robot falls over and crushes Mr. Burns, leaving the rich tycoon in need of emergency medical attention. Homer wakes up in a cold sweat and realizes that it was all just a nightmare. However, to his horror, he discovers that Mr. Burns' head is still attached to his body in the real world, which Homer goes on to complain that he hates having two heads. Clown without pity. Bart's birthday is in full swing, and he's got a pile of amazing presents and even his grandpa's social security money. But there's one problem: Homer forgot to get a gift. In a panic, he rushes to the House of Evil, a one-stop shop for all your evil needs, where he picks up a talking Krusty doll. The store also sells a frozen yogurt called Frogurt. Yeah, it's good. Despite its innocent appearance, the Krusty doll turns out to be quite malicious towards Homer, repeatedly attempting to kill him and making advances on Lisa's Malibu Stacy doll. After capturing the evil toy in a bag of dirty socks and disposing of it in a bottomless pit, Homer thinks the nightmare is over. However, the doll manages to follow him home and tries to drown him in Santa's Little Helper's water bowl. Desperate for help, Marge calls Krusty Co, and the repairman arrives to fix the doll's accidental switch. Though forgiven, the doll becomes Homer's servant and shares Lisa's dollhouse with Malibu Stacy. But the happy scene ends in a horror as the doll's affectionate gesture towards Malibu Stacy results in her head falling off. King Homer. The scene shifts to a black and white parody of the classic 1933 film King Kong, with Marge joining Mr. Burns and Smithers on an expedition to Ape Island in search of the fabled King Homer. However, Burns double-crosses Marge and uses her as bait to lure the giant ape. When King Homer arrives, he proceeds to take out a good chunk of Burns' crew. Burns tries to sedate the ape with a gas bomb, but only ends up gassing himself, prompting Smithers to toss the grenade and finally tranquilize King Homer. Burns returns to America with his captive, parading King Homer on Broadway for the press. But when the camera flashes anger the ape, he breaks free and wreaks havoc on the city, devouring people left and right, including Shirley Temple during the performance. He even tries to climb the Empire State Building but can't even get off the ground. Exhausted, King Homer collapses, prompting Marge to suggest he eat more veggies and fewer people. The story ends with the ape and Marge getting married on the same day Dick Cavett was born, with King Homer happily munching on Marge's father, Clancy Bouvier. Dial Z for zombies. Bart's book report takes a dark turn when he delves into the occult section of the school library. After finding a book of magic, Bart attempts to impress his sister Lisa by resurrecting their deceased cat, Snowball 1. However, his spell goes awry and he brings back an army of zombies instead. The undead rampage through Springfield, turning beloved characters like Principal Skinner, Ned Flanders, and Krusty the Clown into brain-eating monsters. As the zombie invasion spreads across Springfield, the Simpson family takes action to protect themselves by barricading all the doors and windows of their home. Homer attempts to sacrifice himself, but the zombies ignore him when they realize he doesn't have a tasty enough brain to eat. Lisa recognizes that the solution may lie in a book from the school library, and the family sets off to find it. They face a horde of zombies, which Homer wielding a shotgun to take down famous undead figures such as George Washington and Albert Einstein. While Homer distracts the zombies, Bart and Lisa locate the necessary book in the occult section of the library. Bart accidentally transforms Lisa into a snail with a spell from a different book, but he ultimately finds the correct spell and reverses the zombie curse. The family returns home safely, but they soon become distracted and mindless themselves, succumbing to the influence of mindless television programming. The Devil and Homer Simpson. Homer dreams of being a fashion reporter at a donut modeling show, but then finds out that all the donuts have been eaten by his work colleagues. In a moment of desperation, he sells his soul to the devil, who surprisingly turns out to be Ned Flanders. Homer realizes that if he doesn't finish the donut, the contract will be voided, but then the devil warns Homer that he will go to hell eventually before disappearing. Eventually, Homer eats the last donut and the devil appears again. Lisa convinces the devil to give Homer a fair trial, but first he must spend a day in hell. Homer is then punished by being force-fed all the donuts in the world until he goes insane. The family hires Lionel Hutz as Homer's defense attorney for the trial. The jury turns out to be a collection of infamous historical figures, including Richard Nixon, and Hutz makes a hasty exit when the devil offers proof of the deal. Homer is then about to be condemned to hell, but Marge presents a wedding photo with a declaration from Homer pledging his soul to her. The jury rules in Marge's favor and Homer is freed, but the devil retaliates by turning Homer's head into a donut, which Homer proceeds to eat in himself. A majority of Springfield's police await for him outside. Terror at 5.5 feet. Bart has a nightmare about his school bus crashing and being run over by a truck. Later, while on the bus going to school, he sees a gremlin attacking it. However, every time he tries to warn the others, they don't believe him. When he tells Otto about the gremlin, Otto mistakes his warning for Hans Moleman's car and knocks him off the road. Skinner tries to calm down his paranoia by closing the window shade, but Bart can't resist peeking out and spotting the gremlin. Skinner then tackles Bart and ties him up with Willie's rope. However, Bart convinces his seatmate Uda to free him and discovers that the gremlin is loosening the back tire. Using the bus's emergency flares, Bart opens the window and manages to knock the gremlin off. The gremlin then lands on Ned Flanders' car, and despite the gremlin's attempts to attack him, Flanders stops and picks it up. After the bus finally arrives at school, Skinner sends Bart to the new Bedlam home for the emotionally interesting. While there, the gremlin appears at the window of a truck and shows Bart the severed talking head of Flanders. Bart Simpson's Dracula. Wiggum destroys the museum's Egyptian wing thinking it's a mummy, but Lisa believes it's a vampire. The family then travels to Pennsylvania to have dinner with Burns at his mansion. Lisa is the only one who notices the obvious signs of Burns being a vampire. After Lisa spills the punch on herself and Bart, they discover Burns' vampire lair and investigate. As Lisa looks through Burns' autobiography, Yes, I Am a Vampire, Burns' vampire minions rise and advance on the two. The kids flee, but Bart stops when he sees a lever for a super happy fun slide. Knowing it's a trap, Bart pulls it anyway and slides back down into the lair, where a group of vampires are waiting for him. Lisa rushes back to the family to share what she discovered, but then Burns shows up with blood on his mouth and a bitten pale Bart who denies anything happening, which the family believes. Later that night, a vampire Bart appears at Lisa's window with other bitten children. The family intervenes and Bart turns into a bat and escapes. Lisa then suggests they need to kill the head vampire, Mr. Burns, to save Bart. The Simpsons return to Burns' castle and enter his lair. Homer accidentally hits Burns' crotch before driving the stake through his heart, killing him and getting fired in the process. The next morning at home, Grandpa claims to be a vampire and the rest of the family reveals they are all vampires too, with Marge as their leader. They bare their fangs at Lisa before turning to the audience and wishing them a happy Halloween in a closing shot that parodies a Charlie Brown Christmas. The Shining. In a hilarious parody of Stanley Kubrick's horror classic The Shining, the Simpson family becomes caretakers of Mr. Burns' summer estate. Upon arrival, Burns gives them a tour, revealing their house's dark history, involving satanic rituals, witch burnings, and even John Denver Christmas specials. As an elevator spills blood, Burns casually remarks that it usually happens on the second floor. Bart irritates groundskeeper Willie by using the chainsaw to cut through the hedge maze. Willie then believes Bart has the Shining, but is corrected by Bart himself, who mentions it's actually The Shining. Willie hushes him, fearing a lawsuit. Groundskeeper Willie instructs Bart to use his ability to call for help if Homer goes crazy. Meanwhile, Mr. Burns and Smithers sabotage the power cable and remove all the beer. The lack of TV and beer drives Homer insane. Moe, appearing as a ghost, offers him a beer in exchange for murdering his family. Homer initially hesitates but is convinced by Moe's argument that they would be happier as ghosts. Marge finds a typewriter with a message from Homer that reads "Feeling fine," and he bursts in seeking a title for his writing. Marge suggests go crazy. Homer lunges at her, but she defends herself with a baseball bat labeled for spousal insanity. Homer scares himself in the mirror, falls down the stairs, and gets knocked out. Marge locks him in the pantry until he regains sanity. While Homer peacefully eats, Moe reminds him of their deal. During dinner, Homer mimics famous lines while breaking down doors, but each time he finds an empty room or grandpa. Finally, holding a stopwatch, he grins evilly, terrifying his family. Marge tries to contact the police, but Bart uses his shinning to call groundskeeper Willie for help. However, Willie is axed by Homer upon arrival. Homer chases his family outside with an axe, but when Lisa finds Willie's TV radio in the snow, Homer drops the axe and watches TV. Television restores his sanity, and the family sits in the snow to watch. They freeze while watching until Bart wants to change the channel from the Tony Awards. Homer, unable to move, confesses his rising urge to kill as they scream in terror. Time and punishment. In a parody of A Sound of Thunder, Homer sits down with his family for breakfast, expressing gratitude for their cozy home. Lisa interrupts, pointing out that Homer's hand is stuck in the toaster. After freeing it, Bart alerts him that it's stuck again, causing another panic. Homer tries to fix it in the basement and accidentally turns it into a time machine. He travels back to the time of dinosaurs, learning that altering the past affects the future. Accidentally killing a mosquito, Homer returns to a world where Flanders is the dominant ruler. After escaping a mind-altering process, Homer travels back to the time of dinosaurs. However, he is attacked by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. While fleeing, he unintentionally seals the fate of another timeline by accidentally killing a walking fish. When he returns to the present, Bart and Lisa mistake him for a bug and try to squash him as they have become giants. Homer's second attempt to change the past succeeds in wiping out all the dinosaurs with a chain of sneezes. However, he realizes it will come at a cost. Returning to the future, he finds a lavish kitchen and a well-behaved family. They are wealthy and about to attend Patty and Selma's funeral. Homer is thrilled until he discovers there are no donuts in this timeline. Disappointed, he rushes back to the basement. Homer then repeats the time travel process and finds groundskeeper Willie in his kitchen trying to help him, but Maggie kills Willie with an axe. Returning to the dinosaur era, Homer goes on a destructive spree. The family's house and even the heads of Kang and Kodos change. Eventually, Homer returns to the present and asks Marge questions to confirm reality. Satisfied, Homer accepts the strange universe and settles in with his family. Nightmare Cafeteria. In a Soylent Green parody, Bart suggests his class turn their desk away from the door before Mrs. Krabappel arrives. The students agree, but only Bart's desk is turned. Mrs. Krabappel then sends him to detention. Principal Skinner asks Bart to go to the cafeteria instead due to overcrowding. In the cafeteria, Skinner frets about too many students in detention, and lunch lady Doris complains about serving grade F meat due to budget cuts. Principal Skinner discovers an unusual solution: eating the detention students. Jimbo Jones accidentally spills stew on himself, impressing Skinner with the flavor. Skinner assigns Jimbo to help lunch lady Doris in the cafeteria. Jimbo's unfortunate mishap with meat tenderizer leads to his demise. He becomes a dish called Sloppy Jimbo, enjoyed by teachers. Bart then notices Jimbo's absence from lunch money bullying. Uda cuts in line for another Sloppy Jimbo and gains weight, prompting Skinner to send him to detention. Lisa suspects something when Uda disappears and is served as Uda Bratton in the cafeteria. Skinner overhears and makes a questionable remark, suggesting Uda might still be present. Bart and Lisa then share their concerns with Marge, who dismisses them. The next day at school, the remaining students find themselves in a merged class with an overweight Mrs. Krabappel. The atmosphere is tense, and Wendell's fear is evident as he shakes his desk, which Mrs. Krabappel sends him to detention for a minor incident. Milhouse notices Mrs. Krabappel reading a book titled The Joy of Cooking Milhouse and suggests they escape, realizing any one of them could be next. The trio discovers Martin and other students trapped in hamster cages with Skinner watching over them. Lunch lady Doris attacks them with an egg beater while groundskeeper Willie tries to help but is killed by Skinner. Poor groundskeeper Willie. Skinner and lunch lady Doris corner the remaining 3 students near a food processor. Bart assures his friends that they will be saved, but Milhouse falls into the processor and dies. Bart changes his statement, but no rescue comes, and both Bart and Lisa fall into the blades, meeting the same fate. Attack of the 50-Foot Eyesores. In a parody of the classic 1958 film Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, Homer Simpson finds himself in a donut dilemma at Lard Lad Donuts. Disappointed by the lack of size in their colossal donuts, Homer decides to seek revenge by stealing the iconic metal donut from the Lard Lad mascot. Little did he know that his mischievous act would unleash chaos upon Springfield. As an unexpected freak storm brews, the larger-than-life advertising figures, including Lard Lad, come to life and begin wreaking havoc on the town. Despite Homer eventually returning the stolen donut, Lard Lad and his monstrous friends continue their destructive rampage. Lisa then decides to take the matter into her own hands. She visits the advertising agency responsible for creating the menacing mascots and engages in a thought-provoking conversation with an executive. Realizing that the power of advertising lies in people's attention and interest, the executive proposes a strategy to simply do not look. Determined to save their beloved town, Lisa and the executive collaborate on the song titled Just Don't Look. However, realizing that the tune would be better suited for a seasoned performer, they invite Paul Anka to Springfield for a spectacular performance with Lisa. As the citizens of Springfield join forces, they decide to avert their gaze from the towering monsters. Miraculously, the monsters begin losing their powers and gradually turn lifeless once again. Unfortunately, Homer remains fixated on Lard Lad and the metal donut, unable to tear his eyes away. Recognizing the danger, Bart and Lisa step in and forcibly drag Homer away from the scene. The immense pressure proves too much for Lard Lad, causing him to collapse and return to his lifeless state. Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace. In a chilling parody of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Bart becomes the target of groundskeeper Willie's wrath. While playing with his dog Santa's Little Helper, Bart suddenly finds himself in a nightmare as Willie, resembling the infamous Freddy Krueger, attempts to harm him with a rake. Waking up from the ordeal, Bart discovers actual rake marks on his body. Other students at Springfield Elementary share similar experience, revealing that Willie's actions in their dreams have real-life consequences. As the horrifying truth unfolds, Principal Skinner dismisses Willie's existence, emphasizing a peculiar cover-up. Tragedy strikes when Martin falls victim to Willie's nightmare and meets a terrifying fate in the real world. Bart and Lisa reveal the connection to their mother Marge, who recalls that Willie perished in a heater explosion caused by Homer's negligence. Consumed by vengeance, Willie vowed to haunt the children in their dreams as a means of revenge for the parents' inaction. That night, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie struggle to stay awake, but Bart eventually confronts groundskeeper Willie in his dream. As they battle, Willie shapeshifts into various forms, including a menacing bagpipe spider. Honestly, when I watched this for the first time as a kid, this segment literally scared the hell out of me. With Lisa joining the dream, they are on the verge of defeat when Maggie intervenes, clogging the bagpipe's chimney with her pacifier, causing Willie to explode. Homer cubed. In a parody of the Twilight Zone episode Little Girl Lost, Homer finds himself desperately trying to avoid his sisters-in-law, Patty and Selma. While hiding behind a bookcase, he accidentally discovers a gateway to the third dimension, transforming into a CGI version of himself. Curious yet trapped, Homer embarks on a search for an escape route, only to be unexpectedly stabbed in the rear by a bouncing cone. In a twist of fate, Homer hurls the cone into the ground, triggering a sinkhole that pulls him closer with growing intensity. Outside the third dimension, Professor Frink informs the others about Homer's predicament, leading Chief Wiggum to fire bullets at the dimensional barrier. However, the bullets get sucked into the black hole, narrowly missing Homer. With Homer's life hanging by a thread, Bart bravely takes matters into his own hands. Tying a rope around his waist, he ventures into the third dimension to rescue his father. As Bart explores the captivating but treacherous world, he realizes that the distance between him and Homer is too great to bridge. Homer, in a desperate leap, falls short and is swallowed by the black hole, leaving Bart in the collapsing dimension behind. Bart's safety rope becomes his lifeline, pulling him back to the real world just as everything crumbles into an infinite void. Meanwhile, Homer lands in a dumpster in the real world, greeted by bewildered onlookers. However, his troubles fade away as he sets his sights on an enticing shop called Erotic Cakes and eagerly steps inside. The Finger Knight. In a parody combining the Hunchback of Notre Dame and Basket Case, Bart and Lisa are intrigued by strange noises coming from the attic. Curiosity leads them to spy on Homer as he secretly feeds something up there. Homer accidentally reveals that he works hard to feed 4 children, causing Marge to quickly cover it up. Later that night, the kids venture into the attic, where Bart stumbles upon unsold copies of Homer's autobiography. They encounter a shadowy figure with a sinister laugh, fleeing the attic in terror. When Homer and Marge return home, they discover that the attic has been entered against their instructions, and the mysterious shadow escapes, leaving marks on the front door. Alarmed, Marge contacts Dr. Hibbert to inform him about the escaped Hugo. Bart, unaware of who Hugo is, learns from Marge that he is his twin brother. Dr. Hibbert appears unexpectedly and shares the backstory. Bart and Hugo were originally Siamese twins, though Lisa corrects him by suggesting the term conjoined twins. The catch was that the left twin was evil, prompting Homer and Marge to chain Hugo in the attic and feed him fish heads. Bart Bart becomes convinced of the truth after discovering his own scar. The family, excluding Bart, leaves the house to search for Hugo, while Bart remains behind, aware that Hugo is still inside. Hugo then confronts Bart, immobilizing him on a table in the attic with the intention of reuniting their bodies and restoring his sanity. Just as the operation is about to commence, Dr. Hibbert intervenes and confuses Hugo with a mirror lacking glass, allowing him to deliver a decisive blow to Hugo's face, rendering him unconscious. Upon the family's return, they realize that Hugo's scar is on the left side, indicating that Bart was actually the evil twin and they had mistakenly captured Hugo. Hugo rejoins the family, though still somewhat disturbed from his years in the attic. The Genesis Tub. In a parody of the Twilight Zone's episode The Little People, Lisa conducts a science project with a tooth in cola. A static electricity shock causes life to evolve in the petri dish, rapidly advancing from the Stone Age to the distant future. When Bart destroys their tiny buildings, the miniature civilization retaliates. Bart plans revenge but is interrupted when a beam from the dish shrinks Lisa and transports her into the Tooth City. There she is worshipped as a god, while Bart is seen as the devil. The citizens seek answers from Lisa, who desires to return to a normal size but realizes they lack the technology. As Bart claims the civilization for himself, winning the science fair, Lisa accepts her role as their leader and requests new shoes and socks. Citizen Kang. Homer is abducted by aliens Kang and Kodos while fishing. They inquire about the upcoming presidential election and Homer mentions the candidates Bob Dole and Bill Clinton. The aliens decide to capture the contendants and assume their forms. After spraying Homer with rum to discredit his story, they release him. On election day, Homer stumbles upon the alien ship and launches it into space. Inside, he mistakenly ejects the real candidates, causing their demise. Homer crashes the ship into the White House and exposes Kang and Kodos as aliens. Despite the revelation, the citizens are left with no choice but to vote for one of them. Kang wins and enslaves the country to construct a laser cannon targeting an unknown planet, while Homer humorously remarks,
"Don't blame me, I voted for Kodos,"
before receiving a Rigelian's whip. The Omega Man. In a parody of the Omega Man, Mayor Quimby's racist joke about France sparks controversy. Lisa fears an attack from France. Homer assures her that they have a bomb shelter, but it's just a cardboard box. Homer seeks a real bomb shelter at Herman's Military Antiques. The French president launches a neutron bomb at Springfield. Homer emerges unharmed and complains about the food to Herman's corpse. Oblivious to the devastation, Homer gets annoyed at a traffic light and punches a driver. He then realizes he's the sole survivor after reading the newspaper headline. Homer indulges in freedom, watching a comedy and dancing naked in a church until he encounters mutants led by Moe. The mutants seek to create a perfect world by eliminating past mistakes. Homer is targeted for elimination by the Freaks. He escapes in a hearse, pursued by the Freaks in a zombie car. At home, Homer finds his family, who survived due to lead paint protection. The Freaks have a change of heart upon seeing Homer reunited with his family. Ned envisions a peaceful coexistence between Freaks and norms. However, Marge and the children, except Maggie, reveal hidden shotguns and kill the Freaks. Homer's family decides to seize the opportunity of the nuclear holocaust and steal Ferraris. Fly vs. Fly. In a parody of The Fly and Spy vs. Spy, Homer buys a matter transporter but forbids Bart from using it. Bart sneaks his pets into the teleporter, resulting in a merged creature. Bart decides to splice his DNA with a fly to become a fly superhero, but ends up swapping heads with the fly instead. The family discovers the bizarre transformation and accepts the creature as Bart. Lisa raises concerns about Bart's original head, but her question is completely ignored. Bart returns home after causing chaos in the insect world, but finds the fly has taken over his life. He tries to explain to his family, but they can't hear him. Bart convinces the flyboy to switch back, but the flyboy refuses. Bart then seeks Lisa's help and communicates through her saxophone. The flyboy attacks Lisa and Bart is consumed. Lisa then activates the microwave, causing the flyboy to stumble into the teleporter. Bart is then restored, but Homer angrily chases him with an axe for using the teleporter. Easy Bake Coven. In a parody of the 1996 film The Crucible, set in 1649, the town of Springfield is plagued by witch burnings. Chief Wiggum orders the boys to ignite the stake, and Nelson Muntz mocks the absurdity. Seymour's mother is displeased and he bids her farewell. Chaos ensues as the townspeople accuse one another in the church. Marge tries to reason with them, calling the witch hunt a circus. Moe accuses accuses her of being a witch, but Mayor Quimby promises due process. They decide to test Marge by throwing her off a cliff with a broomstick. If she flies and survives, she must return for punishment. If she falls, it's an honorable Christian fate. Lisa fails to defend her mother, and Marge is pushed off the cliff by Wiggum's henchmen. Surprisingly, Marge reappears as a green-skinned witch, seeking revenge on the town. She transforms Wiggum, Eddie, and Lou into different forms and unleashes a swarm of bats on the townspeople. Meanwhile, Patty and Selma, also witches, cook in their mountain lair. Marge joins them, saddened by the town's treatment. However, Patty and Selma are happy that she finally left Homer. The witches overhear Ned and Maud Flanders' concerns and decide to visit their home and demand their sons. Maud offers the witches gingerbread men instead. They collect the treats instead, sparing the children. The witches enjoy the tradition and plan to continue it annually. As they fly away, the sea captain credits Maud Flanders for starting Halloween and trick-or-treating, now celebrated by everyone. The following year, the town celebrates Halloween with people in costumes, comparing treats and trick-or-treating. Homer playfully throws eggs at a house that didn't give out candy, but then realizes he's egging his own home, causing laughter. In response, Homer jokingly accuses Lisa of being a witch, leading the townspeople to chase her through the moonlit streets. Hell to Pay. In a parody of the horror film Shocker and the Hell to Pay episode from Amazing Stories, Snake is arrested at the Quickie Mart for smoking indoors while buying a comb. He uses nacho cheese as hair gel and ignites a cigarette in the no smoking zone, resulting in his immediate arrest by Chief Wiggum. Snake admits to his violation and agrees to pay the fine. However, Chief Wiggum reveals that Snake has a history of serious crimes. Since this is Snake's first strike, he is sentenced to execution under the Three Strikes law. Before being taken away, Snake threatens the witnesses Apu, Mo, and Bart. Eventually, Snake is executed in the electric chair on World's Deadliest Executions, hosted by Ed McMahon and broadcasted on Fox. Originally, it was supposed to be hosted by Troy McClure, but I don't really want to get into that. If you know, you know. Chief Wiggum then arranges for Snake's body to be used for organ donations at the hospital. Homer then finds himself entangled in a hair-raising incident after receiving a transplant of Snake's hair from Dr. Nick Riviera. Unknown to Homer, the hair possesses a sinister control over his mind. Consumed by its dark influence, Homer commits horrifying acts of violence. First, he gruesomely murders Apu by forcing him into his own squishy machine. Then Homer proceeds to extract Moe's heart using a corkscrew, leaving him lifeless, face down in a bowl of Pencil O cereal. Bart soon realizes that it is not his father but Snake who is manipulating Homer's actions. Desperate for salvation, Bart implores Homer to resist the hair's control. After a fierce struggle, Homer summons the strength to tear the hair from his head. The hair retaliates by attempting to smother Bart, but before it can succeed, Chief Wiggum bursts into the scene with Eddie and Lou. They arrive to arrest Homer for the prior murders. However, as the hair lunges towards the window, Homer points at the hair as the true culprit, which Wiggum then opens fire. Bullets pierce the hair and Maggie uses it as a blanket. Reflecting on the eerie events, the story concludes with a remark from Chief Wiggum,
"Now that's what I call a bad hair day."
The terror of Tiny Toon. Marge forbids Bart and Lisa from watching the Itchy and Scratchy Halloween special. Bart discovers a piece of unstable plutonium in Homer's toolbox and inserts it into the remote control's battery slot. When they use the modified remote, Bart and Lisa are transported into the world of Itchy and Scratchy. There they witness Itchy decapitate Scratchy and use his head as a jack-o'-lantern. While laughing, Scratchy's head asks why Bart and Lisa are laughing. Itchy explains they are laughing at his misfortunes. Scratchy reattaches his head, declares their actions are mean, and teams up with Itchy to teach them a lesson. They attack Bart and Lisa but encounter Poochie, who gets hit by a car. Bart and Lisa escape and Itchy and Scratchy end up on the talk show after falling into a pot of soup. Bart and Lisa return when Homer changes the channel back. Lisa uses the remote and rewinds back to restore Bart's flesh. Itchy and Scratchy break through the screen but become harmless due to their small size. The family decides to keep them as pets with Itchy in a hamster terrarium. Scratchy falls in love with Snowball and Marge suggests he gets neutered, which causes him to scream while covering his crotch. Starship Poopers. Marge finds Maggie's first birthday tooth, which turns out to be a sharp fang. Maggie then develops green tentacles and loses her baby legs. Marge takes her to Dr. Hibbert, who suggests using fire to address the situation after Maggie damages his equipment with her fang. Back at home, Maggie loses her arm and discovers she can communicate by rapidly sucking on her pacifier, which attracts the attention of the alien duo Kang and Kodos. They claim Maggie as their daughter, and Marge reveals that Kang is Maggie's biological father. Marge recounts the story of how Kang and Kodos abducted abducted her during laundry time and chose her for a crossbreeding program. She explains that they used mind control techniques and an insemination rate, resulting in Maggie's birth 9 months later. Kang and Kodos demand that the Simpsons hand over Maggie, leading to a struggle. Bart intervenes, suggesting that they resolve the issue by appearing on the Jerry Springer Show, where Homer and Kang can settle their differences. During the show, Kang vaporizes an audience member who criticizes him. Maggie and Kang attack Jerry, leading to chaos, while Homer and Kang continue their fight. Kang and Kodos threaten to kill all American politicians unless the Simpsons hand over Maggie. Marge and the others doubt their ability to carry out the threat. Just as they are about to depart, Maggie, in Kang's voice, declares,
Very well, I'll drive.
I know what you diddly did. In a parody of I Know What You Did Last Summer, the Simpsons accidentally run over Ned Flanders on a foggy evening. Homer climbs to the top of his house with Ned's body, but Maude doesn't notice when he throws it off the roof. Homer then dumps Ned's corpse inside, anticipating Maude's horrified scream. After Ned's funeral, the Simpsons return home, and Homer boasts about getting away with murder. Marge then intervenes when he considers driving over Milhouse. The Simpsons discover a message on their front door, indicating someone knows about Ned's murder. During the stormy night, the family receives a phone call from Moe, who dialed Homer by mistake. Lightning reveals their house covered in the ominous phrase, I know what you did. A cloaked figure with a hook confronts them, leading the Simpsons to flee their home. Their car is also marked with the same message, forcing them to escape on foot when the vehicle runs out of gas. As the figure approaches, Homer instructs his family to hide in different places. Marge in an abandoned amusement park, Lisa in the pet cemetery, and Bart in a spooky roller disco. Homer plans to skinny dip in a lake where teenagers were killed a century ago. Unexpectedly, the figure catches them, revealing himself as Ned Flanders. Ned survived the accident after being bitten by a werewolf moments before. Lisa realizes Ned's intention to kill them, and they all laugh. However, as the moonlight engulfs him, Ned transforms into an undead werewolf. Terrified, Marge and the kids flee, while Ned mauls Homer to death despite Homer's mocking remarks. Desperately seeking Xena. In a Marvel Comics parody, Marge takes Bart and Lisa to the school gym where Chief Wiggum inspects Candy with an X-ray machine. However, the machine malfunctions during Nelson's scan. Bart and Lisa are hit by a radiation blast, giving Lisa incredible strength and Bart the ability to stretch. They become the superhero duo Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl. At a science fiction convention, Lucy Lawless addresses fans including Professor Frink. Comic book guy, now known as the Collector, kidnaps Lawless using a magnet to attract her metal breastplate. In his lair, he places her in a pet film bag along with other captured celebrities. Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl invade the Collector's hideout, but he incapacitates Clobber Girl with a phaser gun. He tries to shoot Stretch Dude, who cleverly avoids the rays. The Collector throws his empty ray gun at Stretch Dude, knocking him out. Lucy Lawless, still restrained, lures the Collector by feigning attraction and then fights back with kung fu moves. The Collector brandishes a limited edition lightsaber from Star Wars, but Lucy informs him that it's no longer valuable outside its packaging. Horrified, he falls into the lucite and strikes a dramatic pose. Lucy then carries Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl to safety and fly off together, accompanied by the Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl theme song. Life's a glitch, then you die. On December 31st, 1999, Dick Clark hosts New Year's Rockin' Eve in Springfield instead of Times Square. Homer, the Y2K compliance officer, misses fixing his own computer, causing a virus to spread worldwide. Chaos ensues as planes crash, appliances malfunction, and looting begins. The family discovers a rocket destined for Mars, and Lisa is chosen to go as the proofreader. She selects Marge, who takes Maggie, leaving Homer and Bart behind. Homer and Bart stumble upon an unguarded rocket. To their horror, they discover it's filled with B-list celebrities on a suicidal mission to crash into the sun. Unable to bear the company, Homer and Bart eject themselves into space. Their heads swirl and explode as the rocket heads towards the sun, while the passengers sing the trolley song before meeting a fatal end.